What's going on, everyone? I'm your host Derek, and welcome to LPE, the show where we attempt to play every single game so you don't have to. The next game on our list of NES games is 1942, developed by Capcom in 1985. Modern games have ruined me, as I instantly assumed this game was going to be some sort of retro FPS and was not looking forward to playing it. However, I was pleasantly surprised that it was a classic flying shooter game. Like most NES games, the menu is very basic and has no story attached to it. You choose if 1 or 2 players are playing, and that's about it. Though once you run out of lives, you get to choose if you want to continue or not. And let me tell you, I'm very thankful for this, otherwise I would never have been able to finish. 1942 is hard, mostly due to the relatively stiff controls. If your idea of a good time is perfecting your high score in a challenging retro game, then I think you'd enjoy 1942. That's not my idea of a good time though. Thankfully, for us peasants, the game does have the continue feature. The game starts off with you doing a barrel roll of some sorts off an aircraft carrier and immediately has you shooting down enemy planes. You maneuver with the D-pad, you can move diagonally by pushing 2 directions down at the same time, you shoot with B, and you can do a barrel roll with A. At the start of each game, you get 3 rolls and you can earn more by finding in-game power-ups, which the game has 4 variations of. There's a green power-up that lets you shoot 4 bullets instead of 2, a silver one that gives you 2 smaller ships on either side of you, also allowing you to shoot 4 bullets but slightly wider than the green power-up. These ships have individual lives and die off if they are hit. One of the red power-ups kills all enemies on the screen, the other gives you an additional barrel roll maneuver. Though the game doesn't make it immediately obvious due to its very limited color palette, it does have a decent number of different enemies. Enemies come in 4 sizes: the small ships, which are silver, green, orange, and have a few different sprite varieties. Medium ships can be silver or green. Large ships and boss-sized ships are only green. Capcom made an attempt at having colors signify what kind of enemy each ship was, but the game kept changing them as you progressed through the levels. It made the game a little more challenging and made me pay constant attention to what was going on, but I would have preferred if the game was a little more consistent. Small ships either shoot bullets or fly directly at you. Medium ships primarily serve as a way for pros to really buff up their scores. They fly through the screen, sometimes indefinitely, sometimes only for a limited period, and do not shoot at the player. Large ships always enter from behind, and once they reach the location at the upper half of the screen, start releasing a ton of bullets. I would recommend shooting these down right away, otherwise you're in for a rough time. And every few levels there was a boss level, which was a singular large green ship. Hands down, the boss fights are the best and worst parts of this game. Pros will appreciate the challenge they present, but the average player is just going to hate fighting them. Every boss fight begins with all the other enemies either disappearing off screen or spontaneously blowing up, which I found a bit odd, but hey, maybe these boss planes have an ego or something. These fights are incredibly hard, and each one took me several continues, not individual tries, but continues. The game screen on each boss level is constantly moving back and forth, which throws you off a bit as the entire rest of the game is only moving forward. When the boss is closest to the bottom of the screen, there's barely any room to maneuver, forcing you to move to the left or right sides, and since you can only shoot straight, you can't do any damage if you're too far to the side. In addition to all of that, the constant barrage of bullets makes it incredibly hard to get back into a position that allows you to start dishing out damage again.
What? What?
Eventually though, I powered through and I defeated all the bosses for you guys. Well, I can't say the game was exactly fun. It was enjoyable for the first half hour or so. The remaining 2.5 hours were a bit boring. Each stage was nearly identical in terms of looks. The only thing that changed was slightly more enemies in each one as you progressed. Though I will give Capcom some credit for including a mighty 32 stages. Your plane moves around very slowly and some of the later levels felt quite cramped. What I found very odd though was that the special move you have in your arsenal is a barrel roll. I was expecting a bomb or something that blew up the current enemies on the screen, like Geometry Wars. The barrel roll did save me on occasion, especially on boss fights, but most of the time they're just a bit awkward and they're so slow that when you complete the entire cycle, you aren't in a much better position than you were before you started. Lastly, your bullets only count as 1. No matter if you have all the power-ups and you're shooting 6 bullets at a time, if the bullet on the far left hits an enemy, they all disappear, and even if it appears you've hit 2 enemies simultaneously, only 1 will die. This is probably a limitation of the hardware more than anything else, but it just felt a little silly and it felt like it really limited the usefulness of the power-ups since the power-ups primarily gave you more bullets. The LPE rating system is primarily based on, is it worth your time to play today? And 1942 gets 3 out of 7 in this regard. While I did appreciate the relatively large variety of enemies and the game was certainly challenging, you're not missing out on much if you skip this one, and that's what I take into consideration the most when determining the rating. There are much better auto-scroll plane shooting games out there for you to play, and this one certainly isn't worth the $12 it goes for on eBay currently. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more NES games, hit that like button, get subscribed, hit the bell even if you really like me, and I'll see you in the next one.